Today I'm going over the top 64 results for the American National Championship. That's still going on right now, by the way, so we don't know the winner just yet, but we do see what topped. Oh, and also go check out this beautiful playmat at zerodamagegaming.com. Use the code SOLEM for a discount. Now, big shout out to Septo for actually getting all of this information out there. I do have to say, right after I finished up this graph, 2 decks or so shifted around, so these percentages you see aren't entirely correct. Like the 12 becomes like 10 or something like that. Very slight minor thing. If you want the most up-to-date topping, you can check that out in the link in the description. However, obviously then you don't get, you know, my take on everything and so forth. Overall, this pie is still very close to correct, but again, as more information rolls out and so forth, the most minute detail might slightly shift. And of course, right after the event ends, then we will also see who's first and so forth, and I will also talk about it. But still, I wanted to have the information out there right now for you. And so we see the highest represented deck, I believe with 11 tops, is Punk Adventurer. We saw this gradually take over the format. Like at first the format started, everyone thought best deck is Branded Despia. Then gradually Sword Soul started getting more traction, and we started noticing everyone was playing Dimensional Barrier. So suddenly Branded Despia and Sword Soul became slightly worse because everyone was just playing the craziest side decks to try and stop these decks. But then I actually mentioned a video a few days ago that I believe Branded Despia would be getting better because less people would be hard siding for it because everyone was so afraid of Punk Adventure. So we're kind of seeing that still, you know. Punk Adventure did take most spots, but very closely followed. We have the Branded Despia right there. Still a really scary deck in my opinion. And of course, tied with Branded Despia is that Sword Soul, which is still like the most consistent deck. Because if you see like what are the 3 best decks, it's very obvious. It's Punk Adventure, Branded Despia, and Sword Soul. But those top 2, neither of them really has the room for a shit ton of hand traps. The only way Punk Adventure is actually able to play a lot of hand traps is by playing a 50 card deck or a 60 card deck, and then they start running stuff like Small World or Pot of Prosperity to still try and find those starters that they are now not able to find quite as easily anymore. So Punk Adventure, sure, some of the lists run 12 hand traps, but they really are scramming to do so. If you go down to like the 40 or 42 cards that we see some people play, the hand trap count is going lower, and of course it's getting very tight. Branded Despia, similar story. Branded Despia has very little room in the deck for hand traps, or well, basically any out of engine cards in general. It's also very hard to side with that deck for that reason. And then we have Sword Soul. Sword Soul has a tiny engine, and like the half of the deck is just hand traps and non-engine stuff, which makes it very versatile, very good in going first and second, which is something these other decks, you know, can't say quite as well. Now, of course, both of them can go second, absolutely, but you know, they're not quite as lean as Sword Soul. So I do really like Sword Soul for that reason, though of course the power of the end boards isn't quite as high. We don't have, you know, a billion interruptions together with a side lock in a Sword Soul. Usually it's going to be like a big long one, a Shishao and a Blackout, or a Baron, a Shishao and a Blackout, and maybe if they opened well, you know, there's one more form of interaction on that board. If post-siding, if they went first, they might also have put in something like a Floodgate trap on top, but the boards aren't quite as impressive as the Punk board or the Branded Despia board for that matter. But these decks we know, you know. If we then go to the next row, we have Dragon Link Adventure, and actually this slice is supposed to be slightly bigger. I believe on the updated thing that Septo just updated, just when I clicked film right here, Dragon Link Adventure has 1 or 2 more tops, so this slice has to be slightly bigger. Also, really solid deck. A lot of people thought Dragon Link was gonna be dead because the Branded Despia deck is able to play the fusion that just completely wipes their whole board for free, but the issue is Branded Despia started falling off. You know, when we had a meta where half the room was Branded Despia, Dragon Link would kinda have issues with Alba Lenatus, but when less and less people are playing Branded Despia, and a lot of Branded Despia players aren't even playing Alba Lenatus anymore because they're no longer afraid of Dragon Link gets a bit better, and Dragon Link still has all of its old tricks. If anything, it has more, because 2 lists ago or so they got this Trudeau, Fairy Tail Snow, and so suddenly they have like a bunch of old tricks they used to have, as well as new tricks. They have the Boral end that they can end on, which is like a huge hard to out tower. They have so many things. On top of course, that Adventure engine, which is great at breaking Sword Soul boards and just great in general. So Dragon Link Adventure, really solid stuff. I also know some of the Dragon Link Adventure players are able to play a certain engine. There's like 2 things. Either they play Zombie World so that Alba Lenatus can be made, or they play like something else. Basically, they can be prepared for the Alba Lenatus play post side, though I don't know if any of these topping players were running it. It's possible that you no longer respect it and you just don't care. Next, we have Punk Therion, which is also also pretty interesting. I didn't think Punk Tyrion was consistent enough, perhaps, but hey, here it is. It's not as strong as Punk Adventure, and, you know, the results show that, but still really solid. And of course, if they pop off, you know, when they go off, when they go that Chaos Ruler, maybe even Zombie Vampire Mill, get Argero system in play to add the Regulus back to hand, Borea, all of that crazy stuff. When it goes off, it's a better deck than Punk Adventure. It's just that very often it doesn't go off and you feel very, very sad about it. Still a solid deck. Still congrats to the players, of course. And then we have Fluanderies. The most hated deck right now. Even in Master Duel, it's out now. So for you Master Duel players, you might, you know, get an aneurysm right now from hearing this. But Flu is also still really strong, of course. If it opens D-Shifter, Robina, GG. Going second, it's not quite as scary, but going first, D-Shifter, GG. And if they go second and they open D-Shifter, also GG. It's really just D-Shifter the deck almost. It's just the deck that uses it the best. Next, we have Branded Eldritch, which is just, you know, classic Eldritch, but they have branded cards so they can actually make a board. Now we have Sky Striker still actually existing as well. For the final pieces on the chart here, I just used Slot Machine because the little slices became so small that you could no longer actually see what deck it was. So I figured since this format is currently a little bit of a slot machine, like if you go against Punk Adventure and you don't open 2 hand traps, okay, GG. Or you didn't open for in Droplet, okay, GG, go next. There's a variety of little things like that. Or you're playing Branded Despia, or open Dimensional Barrier or Anti-Spell Fragrance, okay, GG, next. Kind of a slot machine format right now. I've seen some really good players also complain about it on Twitter and so forth, but it is what it is, so I figured, cool, this is good for this format. Maybe next meta will be a bit different. So we have the ABC right here. I'm assuming it's ABC Therion. I don't think pure ABC is good enough. Like, the fact that you can back up an ABC board with a Tyrion Regulus and so forth is what really makes that deck, I feel. So I'm assuming that's ABC Tyrion. Then we have Branded Predaplant. We saw that being first used by the luxury players. I think Jesse Cotton and Pack were playing that in the last YCS. So it seems it's still topping right now. We have a Pure Dragon Link right here, I believe. 2. Yeah, 2 Pure Dragon Links, so without the adventure. Then we have 2 Drytron, a really scary deck in my opinion. I think Drytron is something not a lot of people are playing it, but I can see it go all the way when people aren't respecting it by not playing Droll and so forth. If you don't open Droplet, their vanities basically just stops you from playing the game. We see Plunder Patrol at 2. That's pretty interesting. I do know Plunder Patrol can also play Adventure. There's a lot of weird things they can do, and not a lot of players obviously like respect the deck. And then finally Other. We'll see which ones those are. Maybe Other ends up winning the event, and then we actually see more of the specifics. Overall, I don't think there's anything too surprising about this format. We have had this format for a little while now, so I think what's going to be most interesting is when the event wraps up, what kind of, you know, tech cards people were playing. Was there a Punk Adventure player winning the whole thing, and was he playing something, or she playing something absolutely crazy in the side? Maybe Spell Canceller that they bring back with Baron in the standby phase so that they can't get Dark Ruler and Forbidden Droplet. Crazy stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Stuff like that will be really interesting to see. That is where I feel the best players might be able to, you know, make it count this format, because in terms of new decks, it was pretty hard. I did see on stream that Luxury was playing a really weird version of Punk. We saw, I think the brother or someone in the family from Hani Johari was playing pure Punk with weird cards that extended once they started milling. It was like a Gizmek Orochi in there and stuff like that. So maybe one of them, I think Christian Urena got top 64. It'd be interesting if he's still playing that, or if he swapped to like the Mare Yazi type of deal. So again, we don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how that developed, if they're gonna share the spice or not. But beyond that, again, no like hyper spice in the deck build department from what I've seen. So I really think it's going to depend on the text, the hand traps and so forth, to see how people prepared for this. Hope you found this interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao. Oh, and also go check out this beautiful playmat at zerodamagegaming.com. Use the code SOLEMN for a discount.